Yes! Hello, my beautiful friends! What an amazing day it is! Welcome back and happy Friday. I hope your week has been absolutely outstanding. You've accomplished all the things you set your mind to. We have a great stream planned ahead. We got 4 segments to attend to. Quick preview, then we'll zoom in. We got some docs to read and some good stuff to unveil. But we're going to start, of course, with the case of Brian Cole Jr., the alleged pipe bomber who they arrested yesterday. We've got some new updates on that, including a new photo that we can see here of Brian Cole Jr. and the rest of the fam. So we'll go through it and we'll do a little compare and contrast with a bunch of the old photos and the videos that the FBI dropped for us over on their official website, because some people are saying it doesn't feel like it's the guy. Kind of thought it was a woman walking around the way she was bending over and kind of being flamboyant. But now it looks like it's a dude, and there was some rumors that apparently he was autistic and he was a DoorDash driver and he was very antisocial. So we'll unpack all of this. We're also learning that he was represented, or his dad was rather, by Ben Crump. Remember Ben Crump? He represents had all of the BLMers. Anytime somebody is shot by a cop or something anywhere, he's racing in there to crash his car in for representation. So he was representing the dad, Brian Cole Sr., and we'll unpack all that. We got more reaction on this. We had Dan and Kash that were out last night. So we got Kash Patel coming up. We got Dan Bongino coming up. And the Democrats are so dumb on this thing. Mark Warner came out and he said, it would have been nice if they caught this guy a lot earlier. You're like, are you stupid? Biden was running the FBI for the last 4 years. So we'll talk all about that and see what the latest is there. Then we got some Venezuela updates because Kari Lake and Sidney Powell, 2 people who we've covered a lot here, they are flagging this for our attention. And apparently this dude, who is an ex-Venezuela spy chief right here called Hugo, released a letter warning President Trump of some pretty serious stuff that's percolating down there in South America. So we'll go through the letter. It's a 3-pager. We'll see what the latest is, and then turn our attention over to Rand Paul and get the latest on what's going on in Venezuela. Are we invading or what's happening there? So we'll come back to that. Then we've got some Supreme Court news. Big victory out of the Supreme Court for the great state of Texas, baby. We're looking forward to this. We've got a short opinion to read here. The majority came down. It was a 6-3 decision. So the majority's pretty short. It's about 3 pages there. And then the left goes nuts. Kagan, Jackson, Sotomayor, the 3 ladies up there, are not happy about it. So we'll talk about that. We've got some more. Ken Paxton called in with Steve Bannon. And we're happy to hear this is happening because we've got a redistricting battle that's taking place all over the country. Midterms coming up soon next year. And Ron DeSantis is saying, all right, now we're going to get in on this too over in the great state of Florida. So all that's coming up. And then we've got Backdoor Judge Dugan. She is still fighting over this audio stuff. And the United States submitted their response. Of course, Dugan is trying to keep this stuff out. There was an audio recording from inside the courtroom that apparently is pretty damning. And she does not want that to come in. And the DOJ responded yesterday and they said, hey, we need it in. Here's why. And they gave us some more details on exactly what is inside that audio. And so it is a beautiful day, my friends. Happy Friday. Members, stick around. We're going to have an after party after the show today. And then, of course, we'll have our Saturday streams tomorrow on a lovely Saturday. So thank you for becoming a member, supporting our work here. If you'd like to do that, we very much appreciate it. We have a great community, a lot of amazing people. You can join up on YouTube or on Locals, and we'll see you in the after party and on the members only stream tomorrow. But today, it is Friday. Quick update on the presidential schedule. Trump gets the presidential intelligence briefing today. Then he's going at about noon, 11:40 East Coast time. FIFA World Cup drawing. And man, there's a lot of attention on that. Apparently, they're going to be competing with some other nations or something. Kind of sounds fun, but we don't care. The president signs executive orders. We'll see what those are about this afternoon. And then, wow, the president and the first lady attend a concert by Andrea Bocelli. Well, that's pretty cool. So that'll be fun. And I'm sure there's nothing quite like hearing it straight out of the vocal cords right into your neocortex. So we've got that light day over elsewhere in Congress. You can see Melania is reading children's books at the National Hospital. Are you kidding me? Let's take a listen to this. Wasn't expecting this, but let's take a listen. She reading right? Oh, okay. Here it is.
2 or 3 and get a kiss from the dog.
Yeah.
If it's a dog that leaks. And take a cookie or 2 or 3 and then leave.
Well, that was a fortuitous splice right into the event. So a dog with a kiss and a lick and some other things. All right, so that's Melania, and they're celebrating, man. They've got the White House now has unveiled their Christmas tree. Saw a little bit of the holiday scene back there, but here was the president last night as well saying, shout out to the Christians.
America has stood tall in part because millions of our citizens have heeded that call, and the faith and service of Christians have been essential parts of America's strength from the very, very beginning. Incredible. We love the Christians. We love all religions. And by the way, religion is coming back to the USA. You see that?
Heck yeah, baby.
Very strongly.
All right, so that's the scene. Shout out to all of our religious folk out there and our Christians and our Christmas tree. Happy to see it out there at the White House. So that was going on yesterday. And a quick pause before we jump into things to say shout out to the great family of Andrew Wolf, the shot National Guardsman who is still recovering at the moment. Their family swung by the Oval Office yesterday. Trump posted about it. He said, our wonderful National Guardsman who was badly injured protecting the Capitol of the United States are here. He is in the process of healing. His parents, his brother, and all of his friends are praying. I just met them in the Oval Office. They are fantastic American patriots. And so prayers continue to remain up for Andrew Wolf and his recovery, and to his family. Looks like a nice group over there. And it's just a tragedy. All right, so shout out, prayers up, and all the things. All right, so that's the update. That's a quick roundup. But now let's get into the business on the day. Here we go. New photo of the alleged J6 pipe bomber has been discovered. This one coming over from Kyle Seraphin. You know who he is, former FBI agent who's now covering a lot of these stories. And he shared this on X, and people are wondering, is this the person that matches all of the FBI videos? You can see we've got a whole slew of videos that the FBI put together on their website, and they now say, boom, arrested, got the person. It's over, case closed. And we hope it is. We hope there's some closure to this, because this was a tentpole part of the entire J6 hoax. We've got questions about whether he was a lone wolf. We've got Dan and Kash who are saying a lot more is going to be revealed, so just hang tight. We're going to come back to that. And of course, as we know, this is very early in the case. They just filed a criminal complaint, as we read through on the show yesterday. And a criminal complaint is just preliminary, right? It's basic. Normally what will happen in a very high profile case like this is they'll also indict the person, okay? And an indictment takes a lot longer than a criminal complaint. As we read yesterday, we went through the affidavit in full. This is the affidavit by the special agent. This is the person who is establishing probable cause. And he's saying, well, this is what I found. And as we read through this yesterday, it was mostly receipts that they discovered and some cell phone data that they were pinging off towers that we thought they didn't have. We thought that data was all corrupted because that's what Stephen D'Antuono told us and Congress. But then they found some new cell phone data and they connected everything. And so they had one special agent who just basically submitted a complaint. He said, I've got probable cause. I think this happened. It's based on my knowledge. Submits it to the judge. The judge says, boom, okay, we'll approve the arrest and you can go pick this dude up. Now, once they pick this dude up, then they're going to go through and they're going to search everything in the house. They're going to look at his phones, computers. I've got questions. Do they have extra end caps or galvanized pipe or black pipe or anything else that matches the exact device materials that were found on scene? So we read through this in great detail yesterday, and if you missed that, please check that out because there's some interesting things inside. But it's only a criminal complaint at the moment. You might expect to see him indicted and have additional charges come down once they have new materials that they've discovered from the arrest and the search of the property. So a lot more I would expect is coming, and maybe it will flesh out the rest of our questions. But as it stands, people are looking at the evidence that we have, and they're asking some questions about it. So this is the guy, and you can see photograph of the family. And as we talked about yesterday, the family has a lot of questions about this. We saw from 3 different articles, I clipped some of the highlights out, but one person, a neighbor, said he was very antisocial. Very. A woman said that she had lived in the neighborhood since 1991. He keeps to himself, right? He only leaves. He goes back and forth to the 7-Eleven, walks the dog, and then comes on back. That's it. Someone else said he's almost autistic-like. I think this was Grandma Loretta. Remember, she said he's almost autistic-like he doesn't understand things. He doesn't understand a lot of stuff. I hope he is not talking. She said that he works at their family bail bonds company, Brian Cole Bail Bonds, which was raided by the FBI. Cole's mother is also a loving real estate agent and has a brother and a sister. Now, he's very naive, said Loretta, Grandma. He would not hurt a fly. He's just not that kind of person. Autistic-like. Someone else said he's just a gentle person, and he was even doing DoorDash for a while. He doesn't have any ties to DC. I don't know how they included him in this. Well, we do. It's receipts and cell phone records. So autistic-like, obviously he's not autistic. The guy has the driver's license. He was doing DoorDash, so he can function. So, the question, of course, is if it's a spectrum, where is he on that spectrum? And will he be able to properly defend himself? Of course, if he does have mental difficulties, we should be able to flesh that out in court. We should have the judge order a review, and then people can do that assessment, and we'll get some more answers on that if this stuff is true. But we're also looking at just the physicality. And yesterday, as we were going through this, something I would love to see would just be a video of this dude walking anywhere. I don't care. Just walking even into the jail, because then we could compare and contrast and see if his body movement, his gait, matches the alleged pipe bomber. And even looking at this photo, one of the first things I noticed is how stiff he is. The rest of the family is loose. He's tight. Okay, kind of propped up posture, stiff neck. You see this woman here, she's got one shoulder lower than the other. This woman's kind of, leaning in. This other guy over here has his hand on the shoulder. He's like just chilling. Okay, she's got her head cocked a little bit. This dude's, holding some flowers. Somebody's graduating. And he's is kind of stiff. And some people just are wired that way, right? And we've talked about this a lot. Oftentimes, if you're at a mall and, somebody that you're with is way down the line, maybe all of their hairs match, all of their heights match, but you can tell who your person is because of the way they're moving. So we'd like to see just a compare and contrast on this, but he does seem stiff. He's got the headphones on. He's got glasses, just like we were looking for. People are noticing the short legs, which is something we've all been contemplating. They said he has short legs. So the body proportions, the height of the legs relative to the height of the torso, and the neck, the shoulders. How does it all compare? So let's take a look at some videos, and of course, want to see what you say about all of this. But here are some of the photos. So the FBI, updated this quickly. Arrested. Everything's arrested. And so they're very excited, which is good. I mean, we want arrests. We're happy about this development because finally we have something to hang our hat on. Previously, it was just like, we have nothing. All the cell phone data got corrupted. You're like, okay. You're the FBI. You're supposed to find these people. And they couldn't do it for a long time. We also have questions, right, about whether they found the shoes. Once they raided his house, did they find the shoes? These are apparently, very special shoes. Did they find them in there? He wasn't wearing them in that photo that we just looked at. So they got him arrested and carrying a backpack, walking around. We'll take a look at some of the videos. Here was the actual detonation device. So the timer was only a 60-minute timer. And then allegedly, it was supposed to happen, which we were thinking is completely inoperable, is that this is a paper clip. The paper clip's just wrapped around the top. And the paper clip, once the timer would expire, ding, then the paper clip would hit the other end of the circuit, close the circuit, bomb supposedly goes off. All right, if you even think that they could go off. So apparently this is what he was making, right? He was going to Home Depot, going to Lowe's, buying the alligator clips, buying the 1-inch PVC and putting end caps on it. And something we noted from the affidavit yesterday was that the end caps don't match. One of those is a black pipe end cap. One of those, it looks like it's a galvanized end cap. One looks actually kind of like older, like maybe that's been out in the weather for a while or something. But 1 inch, 8 inches long. They go through all the receipts. They say he bought a lot of this stuff over a number of years. And so it matches. Now, here are some of the videos, and we'll just kind of watch how his body is moving. They say he's 5'7", and
on January 5th,
of course, we can see the legs and how he's moving as we watch him walk around here. And this person does look like Short legs. We're looking at the shoulders, the stiffness, the shoes, the movement. This is why we just want to see that dude move at all. So it goes around. They're following this person around a little bit more. Let's listen in.
Again, and this time walks south all the way down South Capitol Street to a bench outside the Democratic National Committee headquarters building. Here we see the suspects sit on the bench for a few minutes. They do not place the bomb at this time.
This was the potato recording video. We got like
the
2
suspect
frames
then
per
walks
second.
east on Ivy Street, turns north on New Jersey Avenue, and then pauses near the corner of D Street before retracing their steps back to the DNC bench where the first bomb is placed.
All right, so we'll fast forward to a little bit more video, and we can see some more movement here of this person as we're playing. There we go. Again, potato quality, like 1 frame per second. And then walks off. Let's turn this audio back on.
Here we see the suspect place the bomb at approximately 7:54 p.m.
7:54 and on.
From there, the person walks.
All right, so more video they got a lot of video. They've released a bunch of stuff, so that's just one video. Then over on their website, tons of other compendiums of where this dude was walking and how. Here's one other clip right there. Walking down the street, which looks like a normal walk. Doesn't look like a real limp, anything that we see there. Here's another one from out front of this house. So it's hard to make a connection, obviously. We'd like to see more of this other alleged pipe bomber. But is it the same frame? That kind of looks like a woman walking to me. I don't know. What do you think? All right, so then on the phone, looks up, adjusts the face, adjusts the mask, adjusts the glasses, just hanging out, kind of doing a little like tippy toe thing, kind of off balance. And the movement of the legs, I don't know, it just rings feminine to me. I don't know what to say. So, could be completely wrong, obviously, but here's the one coming around the corner. This was the fabulous one. See those hips kind of moving? All right. So that's the video. Of course, this is the photo of the guy. And at this point, basically, we're just speculating. But you can see there are some similarities, I would say. He's short. He's got some short legs. The proportions between the legs and the torso all look like they match. Maybe he just walks with a little, a waddle in the hips or something. So that's what we've got from the new photo, and we've got more information as well. Apparently, his father was represented by Ben Crump. Ben Crump, we've talked a lot about here. He's represented a ton of other people, mostly from the BLM organization and people who have been, shot by cops when they were attacking the cops or whatever. So here's the report on this, dropping yesterday late last night. Says the father of the accused attempted pipe bomber is called Brian Cole, was once defended by the same civil rights attorney who represented George Floyd. Ben Crump, nationally known attorney, specializes in racial discrimination cases. Crump and Cole claimed the prosecutor back in Rutherford County was blocking the sale. This is back. Oh, so dad was in trouble. A nationally known attorney represented dad in late 21 when the sale of the Tennessee bond business he owned was being blocked by a local prosecutor. So he had this business that was back in Tennessee right here called Free at Last Bonding, 24/7 bail bond service. This was in Tennessee. Remember, they now live in Virginia. And so as he was trying to sell it, apparently a local prosecutor said, no, you can't sell it because you're black. Oh my gosh. Is that what a prosecutor said in America? Says Ben Crump Law represented Brian Cole. They responded to this. Crump's office told the Post in a racial discrimination matter involving a Tennessee-based company, which was the dad's bail bond company right next door. The block against Cole Sr.'s company was dropped soon as Crump joined the team. He's like, oh gosh, I am a racist. He's like, I'll let you sell it. Crump's former client is now back in the spotlight as the alleged J6 pipe bomber. The well-known attorney's office said it never had any legal connection to the son. The firm never represented Junior in any way, shape, or form. The prominent lawyer was once referred to as Black America's Attorney General. Yeah, we know. I know. Every time a white person cuts off somebody, boom, he comes in screaming, we're going to sue you for $1 million. And he often wins. So we also saw that our friend Viva has shared with us that the Blaze had retracted their story. And of course, the Blaze came out and identified somebody else whose story felt very plausible to us, a Capitol Hill police officer who was shooting people from the upper terrace balcony on J6, who was essentially under surveillance in the house next door to somebody else that the FBI was under surveillance of, who's now working for the CIA, who is of the same height, has a knee injury, a leg injury, who was having a problem with her gait. All of that makes sense. It matches. And I think it's about as circumstantial as the FBI's evidence, which is showing receipts and cell phone records. But the point is, they have now retracted the story because she was not charged. This other guy was charged. And so I think it's the responsible thing for a journalist to do. And we were basing our reporting off their story. And so we're also, I guess, by proxy, retracting. But we covered the story and we're just speculating. And we never thought that we were crossing any lines because we can ask questions about government employees. And the government was demanding $500,000 or offering $500,000 in money to people who could help. So they were incentivizing guys like Steve Baker, the Blaze, and other people to find this person. And when they were sharing information about it, the FBI, the Capitol Hill Police, the Metro PD, CIA, none of them came out to disavow the story. And so everybody was just left to speculate. That's their fault, not Steve Baker's fault. So now that somebody's been charged, they have retracted. Our friend Viva posted over here. We love Viva, right next door on YouTube and Rumble. Says the Blaze retracted the story. Now, I do not stubbornly cling to my beliefs, and I'm open to being convinced by evidence that may be adduced against Cole, the current suspect. But given the timeline, the current known facts, and the allegations set out in Baker's expose and the affidavit against Cole, I still find Baker's expose more compelling and substantiated. That said, the DOJ has formally pressed charges, and whether or not it's a business decision, I would have made it myself if I were in the shoes of the Blaze. Like somebody else got charged. You said it was somebody else, so the government. Now you have to do the responsible thing and retract. Now let's follow the evidence, and of course we will. So here's what the Blaze posted over on their website with an update. They said, defining goals of any news organization. Our report posted on November 8th about the J6 pipe bomber was based on sourcing from individuals in a position to know this type of sensitive law enforcement information who have demonstrated record of reliability and accuracy. Now, of note, the sources continue to stand by the information they provided to Blaze News. At all times, the reporting adhered to professional journalistic standards and was published with a good faith belief in its truth. Even so, in light of Thursday's developments and the FBI's arrest of another individual, Virginia resident called Brian Cole Jr., in connection with the Capitol pipe bomb incident, we consider the value of fairness and accuracy to require retraction of this article. Now, after publication, Steve Bunnell, whom the Washington Post identified as the attorney of the Capitol police officer, told the Post his client categorically denies that she planted the pipe bombs. Featured image of this article was changed on December 4, 2025, and they're pulling back from her identity and saying she's not responsible for it, even though they've got some evidence saying that she was responsible for it. So that's the development. Again, I think it's the most responsible thing to do, and we're, of course, going to keep covering it, so more evidence should be coming out very, very soon. And Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are going to give us an update on that in just a short minute. But we also see the Democrats are really struggling with this development. They're having a difficult time reconciling the fact that it's not what they thought it was. And here's Jake Tapper, who came out and he said, you know who this guy is? Brian Cole Jr., seen here in this photograph? He's a white man.
Capitol attack. Brian Cole Jr., A 30-year-old white man from the D.C. suburbs is charged with transporting an explosive device in interstate commerce and with malicious destruction by means of explosion. CNN observed local and federal law enforcement outside his home in Woodbridge, Virginia this morning.
Okay, so Tapper, I think, is just a liar. Now, you could say it's just a mistake. He reads a lot of stuff off the teleprompter, and sometimes he gets it wrong. Don't know if that was on the teleprompter in that way or what, but it's obviously not a white. It's not a white man. It's a black man. And I'm curious, if it was a black man, and it is, and Jake Tapper knew that, would they have said that? Would they have put that in his little teleprompter that he reads from? Would he have said a 30-year-old black man with the same kind of dripping disdain that he has when he says 30-year-old white man? Would he do the same thing if he was actually being honest and say the same thing about a black man? I doubt it, because Jake Tapper hates himself and his life. Now, we've also got more on this from Mark Warner, another moron Democrat. He came out and he said, you know, the Trump administration should be ashamed of themselves for catching this guy. It took forever. They should have caught him years ago. Well, who was running the FBI years ago there, Mark?
You know, I think it is good news if this perpetrator got arrested. But I got to tell you, it kind of makes me, looking at this crowd doing a victory lap, when all the senior FBI officials across all key divisions have been fired for political purposes, when in some field offices up to 45% of the FBI officers who were doing things like counter-espionage and cyber have been assigned to do immigration cases. It's a little rich that they're saying America's safer. How much earlier could we have caught this guy if resources hadn't been diverted?
What? Resources were diverted. Kash and Dan put them back on the case. You had Christopher Wray running the FBI for the last 4 years there, Mark. Did you forget about that? Did you forget about what year it is? So we got Kash Patel. He came out yesterday and he says, look, there's going to be a lot more coming on this. So they had a big press briefing yesterday. We hit the highlights and then they all went out and jumped on the cables. And here's what Kash had to say last night.
Trace, you're going to learn a lot more about him coming up in the next 24 hours because what's going to happen is he's going to make his first court appearance. He's going to have to be arraigned and he's going to have to be subjected to the formal charging process. And once that happens, we'll be able to speak more clearly to the public about what we found. But what I'll remind the audience is this suspect was just 25 years old at the time of the alleged pipe bomb incident, not an old person at all, not someone with extensive history necessarily in the criminal justice system. But I think what we'll find in the coming days, maybe even just by tomorrow, is the amount of resources that you have to put into this. Generally speaking, and not stylizing the evidence in this case, you got to go out and buy pipes. You got to go out and buy end caps. You got to go out and buy sulfur. You got to go out and buy wires. Then you got to figure out how to put that all together successfully. And remember, thankfully, these devices didn't go off, but they could have gone off. They were ready to go off. And so that was a disaster that was averted, thankfully, saving the lives of, hundreds of people around the United States Capitol. And so that's what we were able to hone in on as investigators and FBI agents in the field, let out on that and said, let's go figure out who's buying this stuff and how they're using it and how they're learning how to do it. And I think you're going to get a lot more information as to the how, the why, the when, and the where, and the planning in the coming days.
All right, so I think that's a little bit dramatic and overselling it. I mean, of course, they're celebrating a victory in the arrest. But were they actually about to go off? I mean, there was a 60-minute timer on there, and they found those like 12 hours later, like the next day. So were they about to go off? I don't think so. You'd have to go and actually make the connection, and somebody would have to manually set them off because the timer would have already expired based on the 60 minutes that they had allotted there. So would they really go off? And then we went through and saw the FBI deconstruct the bombs and explain to us that there was explosive material in there, but was it enough to cause a real concussive blast? The idea being, if it's a training operation and an exercise, you'd want some explosive materials in there so that the dogs would activate on it as they're going by. If you fill it with Play-Doh, then they're not going to sniff a chemical in there that's going to be a bomb. So you got to put something in there so that it triggers, even though you don't want it to hit a yield of, death in the event that it did accidentally explode or whatever. So we'll keep our eye on that. We got Dan Bongino also coming up, but there was this interesting thread that was assembled by this guy called Travis Hawley, and he's over on X, And he's doing a little OSINT, open source intelligence, OSINT. Says the FBI has arrested Brian Cole Jr. He's in Woodbridge, Virginia, for the pipe bomb incident that took place on the eve of J621. Let's do open source intelligence on this and use some publicly available information to follow the digital breadcrumb. Now, of course, he says this person is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. We all enjoy the presumption of innocence, and so does he. So a couple of posts here, and it goes through his online history as best as he can connect it. Says the suspect arrested in Virginia is Brian Cole of Woodbridge, Virginia. They say they got a birthday for him, July 12th, 1995. Okay. That's going to be a key detail. From left to right, we've got some other photos here. Brandon, the brother, aunt, Brian Cole Jr. So Brandon, the brother, aunt, and Brian Cole Jr. This post is from 2017, but the comments are from 2019. So someone's digging around. Loretta Cole. She says, Loretta. And is that the aunt or the grandma? Now, Loretta Cole, I think the aunt, says, hi, I'm pretty sure we saw the New York Post say that she was the grandma. So she's saying, hi, Deborah, to the aunt. Brian's kids are grown and working. Brittany is 28. Brian Jr. is 24. Brandon is 22. And one grandson, Braylon, is 8 years old. Brittany's son, tell your mom I asked about her. Grandma also says, me and my two grandsons, Brian Jr. and Brandon Cole. Okay, grandma was saying he's like autistic-like. It wouldn't hurt a fly. So Travis says, I have identified at least 2 email addresses that appear to be that of the suspect. One's called BJ Cole, something at Gmail. Something Cole Brian, something at Gmail, also redacted. Both of these emails have historic account names that show the same birth date as was reported, 7/12/1995. Okay, so we're now backtracing it. So Brian Cole, 7/12/95. And I think this person is pulling this from leaked data, right? So on the internet, there's the dark web, and data leaks happen all the time. You can go find them. So let's say you've got, an account on whatever.com, and that is breached. When you signed up for that account, you put your name, your date of birth, your location, whatever they want for you, and then it all leaks. It's all online somewhere. So he's now searching for it and finding some breadcrumbs. Now, interestingly, his email, colebryan@gmail.com, has been deleted entirely, and his email, bjcolesomething, has not been logged into since March 27th of 2023. So maybe he sent an email and it comes back undeliverable from Gmail. So somebody deleted it. Now, looking at other breached dark web information, only partially redacted due to public interest, it shows a pattern, this is interesting, of patriotic USA, patriotism America, and military-like passwords, Delta, Delta One, and usernames across the web. So you see, some of this is redacted, but he has a username apparently of USA Forever, another name, Revivalist for USA, another name, Patriotism for USA, Brony One Delta. And the bronies, weren't those, that was like the precursor to the furries. It was a bunch of dudes who were singing like these pony songs. I remember that. Patriotism for USA, Forgotten One Delta, Brony One Delta, and then passwords were like America, America One. Now, apparently he was also on Adult Friend Finder, and his username is I am hot for Anthony Weiner. Adult Friend Finder 2016. User ID, also registered with that same email. So Adult Friend Finder, he's up there. Username I am hot for Anthony Weiner. Brian Cole says, Travis Hawley says, Brian Cole has at least 2 accounts on Gouveia Online, an anime-themed, it's the anime again. An anime-themed social networking and forums-based website that launched in 2003. So is this another furry because he was a brony? Oh my goodness, the tentacles run deep. Brian Cole, an anime-themed social networking and forums-based website that launched in 2003. It was once extremely popular, especially among teens and young adults. And for its forums, customizable avatars and virtual economy based on earnings and spending virtual currency. Gouveia Online. Forgotten One Delta. And this apparently was his avatar. Bio, birthday. Birthday's the same. He's using his real birthday, July 12, 1995. Just throws that in there. Now, he appears to be an avid gamer. His emails are registered to various games and accounts, including Ebony, Next Gen, Game Tuts, Gouveia Online, EA, MPGH Game Cheats, etc. These avatars in the image are for his Gaia accounts. So, Ebony, The King's Return, EA Games, and that's what he, I think, is making himself to look like. Now, Travis was able to acquire 5 older IP addresses associated with his 2 email addresses, which included locations in DC, Glenmont, Maryland, China, and Canada. So, IP addresses, rolled up summary. 96, they give us the addresses. MPGH from Jack, that's in DC. He's got another one, a Pinterest from Pinterest, which is in China. He's got another one from Maryland, Glenmont, which is a dueling network hack from 2017. Pulls all the IPs. I don't know how he's getting it. Delta 1 Forgotten. He also has another password called Brandon1. This is a video game site out of Maryland, Glenmont, Maryland. And also Canada. His username was Brony1Delta. So like military furries. Now, he was also looking for pen pals online, sometimes before 2015 when his account was part of a data breach. So Inner Pals, his name, Brian Cole. His username was Valor Die Hard. BJ Cole, same email. And they got hacked, right? Inner Pals got hacked. Meet the world. So somebody downloaded all of their user info. It's on the dark web. They found it. Oh, he used that email to sign up over there. It was a hack. Date that this was compromised was back in 2015. 3.4 million records online. Yeah. And so you think about all those emails you get. We were in the middle of a security breach. You're like, shut up. Get out of my inbox. Delete. This is where our info is. Brian Cole is clearly an avid gamer who's also into things like fantasy and anime. He had an account with Dueling Network, which is a Yu-Gi-Oh simulator. And I don't want to know what that is. A Yu-Gi-Oh simulator? Don't tell me. DuelingNetwork.com is the domain. Compromised date back in 2017. 6.5 million records picked up there. The username for his email, colebryan@gmail, was Delta1 Forgotten, and he's over on Dueling Network. He has also been using the Delta moniker across gaming websites for over a decade. Another video game website called GameTuts.com. GameTuts, Cole Bryan registered. This is Brony1Delta. He's a Brony now. So that was back, his birth date, same birth date. Profiles all over the internet. Now, on June 9, 2012, he created a Twitter account. It was called Revivalist4USA. bjcolesomething@gmail.com. Looks like some stuff was leaked and they got their hands on that. Appears that crime also runs in the family. Oh, no. His sister is called Brittany Tierra Cole. Travis says she's got numerous violations. Yeah, that's a nice list there. Criminal traffic and record summary and more. You can see DUI first, refuse the breath test. Yeah, it's implied consent. Most states have that, so automatic revocation of your license. Drug possession, marijuana, and other paraphernalia. DOSL, driving on a suspended license, no driver's license. Reckless driving, 81 and a 55. Multiple speeding, following too closely. HOT lane, right turn on reds. Man, that's a big list there. Now, his brother, Brandon Marcus Cole, also multiple felony charges, according to Travis. Felony charges, 18 to 19, controlled substances, manufacturing, manufacturing controlled substances, prisoner possession of unlawful chemicals, felony marijuana distribution, disorderly conduct, marijuana, reckless driving, contributing to the delinquency of a minor, getting them high and drunk, speeding, safety belts, tinted smoke windshields, and more. Now, using open sources, I also came across an extensive traffic criminal record for the father called Brian Jerome Cole. Reckless driving, driving without a license, DOSL, 20 plus, or that was without, not suspended, 20 plus over in Arizona, that's a crime. Bond forfeitures, noise violations, numerous in absentia, guilty findings, so didn't even show up to his court. Also, tons of speeding, reckless, 92 and a 70, 79, 65. Tons. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 tickets. Amazing. Repeated offenses in Fairfax, Prince William, Alexandria, Dinwiddie, and many other places. Out of state, North Carolina, and more. Now, this was his father, apparently, Brian Jerome Cole, on YouTube, talking about being a bail agent. Wow, let's check this out. So this is on YouTube. We'll let that load up. His father, Brian Jerome Cole, also appears to be, maybe ironically, the president of Free You Bail Bonds. It's like, wow, you can use your services maybe to bail your son out. His father's email is this one now over at MSN.com, and that is the registrar of 83 bail bond domains. Okay, so this guy's a bail bondsman, and he's got all of this registered to him. So 804 bail bond. These are probably zip codes in Tennessee and Virginia. 301, 202. That's going to be in DC. 302bailbonds.com. And he's doing a little SEO, search engine optimization, to try to, boost those things up. Somebody's in 602, 703 bail will show up, or 703, 540. So he's got them all. Then, according to open sources, his father also had a federal tax lien of $266,000 on that property over there in Virginia. Total lien amount, federal tax lien, not paying his taxes. So the feds came in and wrapped up the property. Now, is that something that might be contributing to the motivation? Like, does son junior know that dad senior has almost over $250,000 lien on the property, so he's unhappy about that? Another one for almost $50,000 in 2016, all on that property. Another one for $30,000. Man, that just keeps going up and up and up. Now, here's this guy who did this reporting. Awesome thread, honestly. Travis at travholly.com if you want to talk to him about anything. And he just pulled this stuff up from OSINT information. So, measure it for what it's worth, but looks pretty dang good to me. So, amazing report here. We're going to repost this at the top of our timeline so you can access it easily over there on X and dig in further and contact Travis if you'd like to speak to him, because that was a great report. So we have that. And now is Dan Bongino, who is explaining that we're just warming up on this. Okay, this is like chapter 1 of a 20-chapter book. So more will be revealed.
New York Post reporting that this suspect, Brian Cole, had possible anarchist leanings. I have other contacts that spoke with people that lived in the neighborhood, that knew him. Any evidence at this point that you can tell us, any anti-ICE sentiment, any anti-police sentiment, any radicalization or evidence of radicalization that you and the team, to quote you, are finding and that you're seeing at this point?
Well, the assistant director in charge of the Washington field office is an absolute manhunter. Darren, you saw him at the press conference today. In just the last couple of months, he's had to deal with the tragic National Guard shooting, Washington Safe Streets program. He's been dealing with this case and other public interest cases as well. I say that because this was a lengthy investigation. This did not just happen yesterday. We've been doing this for a while. As legal process starts to come out and filter out into the public space, you may see some more stuff tomorrow. I don't want to get ahead of it, but you'll see more. And I want to be very clear with the public. This is chapter 1 of a 10-20 chapter book. This investigation is not over at all. The investigation has just begun. We've interviewed the subject at length. We are still going through an enormous amount of process, accounts. So it would be very early for me to get out ahead of that on motive. I mean, obviously the motive was to drop a couple bombs and, that could have killed people. But what the actual ideology and motivation, I want to be cautious that this gets done correctly. And sometimes smooth is fast.
All right. Now, this is interesting because CNN just broke this as we were watching Dan. They said here, the accused DC pipe bomber told the FBI that he thought the 2020 election was stolen, because it was. During interviews, CNN just posted this one minutes ago, literally. During interviews with the FBI, the suspect arrested in the FBI pipe bomb probe told investigators that he believed the 2020 election was stolen. That's interesting, because if the Ray FBI would have discovered that, wouldn't that fact have been front and center, just punched in our faces repeatedly? This crazed pipe bomber thought the election was stolen, so he's going to blow up Washington. I think they would have been very keen on telling us that, providing a possible motive for the bombs that were placed near the DNC and the RNC headquarters. People briefed on the matter said the FBI arrested Brian Cole, 30, on Thursday, saying he planted pipe bombs. Cole spent hours, as Bongino just told us, with the FBI investigators and made multiple statements as of last night. Bongino, deputy director, told Fox News on Thursday that they had interviewed him at length but didn't elaborate. Now we know, according to CNN, so who knows. The FBI and the DOJ declined to comment for this story. But the Bureau believes the man compiled bomb-making supplies for months before leaving the viable explosive devices outside the political offices. He's charged with transporting the explosive device and using malicious materials for destruction, expected to appear in court on Friday and has not yet entered a plea. Let's take a look at the docket. So he was there yesterday, and let's do a refresh on the docket to see if we have any other updates. Here we go. He's got an attorney. So the case was unsealed, notice of appearance. His attorney just entered their appearance. Let's learn who this attorney is. John M. Shorman. He is a lawyer at... It's not a good website. Okay, so we don't know who he is. Attorney at McFadden and Shorman, according to this, lawyer DB. John, no photo. Please load. We're in the middle of a live stream right now. Thank you. Says here, member, this guy, John Michael Shorman, member attorney. He's up in Connecticut, according to this address. I didn't see his, like, a website profile or anything on a quick search. But let me scroll down a bit. In other words, I'm wondering if he's a public defender or, appointed or private. And they say he's an attorney at McFadden and Shorman, but I don't see them. They might have a contract. Open Government New York, they might have a contract. He's an attorney in Washington, admitted in New York State. And Open Gov New York, registered attorney. All right, so we'll learn more about him. Looks like he's over at McFadden and... Let's go look over there. McFadden and Shorman. See if we got anything for him on there. Man, they don't even really have a website. This law firm doesn't even have a website. All right, so... Not that we're finding. Anyways, so that's the latest on that. They say he's going to be appearing in court today. Here is the latest over from NBC. Says the suspect has been cooperating, expected to make his first court appearance today. Charged with planting 2 pipe bombs, cooperating with the FBI. Someone else said he's expected to make his first appearance, charged Thursday with leaving bombs. And we know he was indicted yesterday and arrested, so he'll make his first appearance today. Cole was charged with transporting an explosive device and attempting malicious destruction by means of explosive materials, according to the charging document. So yeah, Kash is saying he's going to show up and be formally arraigned, but we're going to get more information after that. I'm not sure what we're going to get. Trump received about 74 million votes nationally, and the criminal case is now moving forward. So we'll keep our eye on that, but his attorney has entered an appearance in. We don't know exactly if he is privately retained or if he is government appointed. But he'll be in there officially, so he's arrested, he's in custody, and we've already got the affidavit. So they may be working right now to also criminally indict him, and then maybe the indictment will lead to much more, but we'll keep our eye on it. Anyways, that's the update today. I think that the big stories are about the photos that are being released and the family history that has been released. Is this the man? A lot of similarities, of course. We've got, proportionality between the legs. We've got cell phone records. We've got receipts. They just searched his whole residence. We'll find if they found other end caps that maybe match the same batch as the end caps that were on the pipe bombs so that we can have a forensic connection right now. We don't have that right now. We don't have even a good photo ID of the person in the jacket and in the mask. So we'll be very curious to watch this one. We're very interested to see what he says, what the FBI submit or the DOJ submits in their filings after his appearance today. And we'll be here continuing to cover it. Thank you for subscribing and joining as we do. All right, now, as we're waiting for that to develop, let's turn our attention to some of these other stories, which are also very interesting out there, including this one. An ex-spy chief sending a letter warning President Trump about what is happening on the international stage. And Carrie Lake is flagging this one for us, saying, here's a letter written to President Trump from a man formerly inside the Maduro regime and the cartel. She says this is a stark warning. Writing, Dear Mr. President, we're going to read through it, but someone else is also weighing in on this, and her name is Sidney Powell. We remember her from the rigged 2020 election. She was fighting for the president, got prosecuted by Fani Willis. She said, yes, this election fraud, it's all connected to everything wrong here. So pay close attention to this. And the letter was originally brought to our attention courtesy of the Dallas Express. They said, we got an exclusive here. Former Maduro spy chief sent a letter to Trump. This guy right here is in federal prison right now. His name is Hugo Carvajal Barrios. Used to work with Maduro. We're talking about invading Venezuela or bombing them or whatever is happening soon. Saying the Dallas Express got our hands on an explosive letter addressed to President Trump from Hugo, the former director of military intelligence for Venezuela. Kind of sounds like the director of the CIA. And once one of the most powerful figures inside the government of Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro. The letter, shared exclusively with us by his lawyer called Robert, a former senior Justice Department prosecutor. Okay, so not just some random attorney. Former senior Justice Department prosecutor is now representing him. He releases the letter. Marks the first time the retired Major General has put these warnings on the record since he pled guilty earlier this year. He was extradited from Spain after a lengthy international manhunt. So like this, they wanted this guy bad. Says he is writing to atone and to alert Americans to what he describes as a coordinated, state-directed campaign targeting the United States. They give us a brief. We're going to read the letter. But this came from the inner circle of Venezuela. Carvajal, widely known by his nickname called El Pollo, spent years inside the top tiers of Venezuela's security apparatus and dealt directly with senior leadership of Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro. Now, earlier this year, he pleaded guilty in federal court to charges stemming from a conspiracy that moved cocaine into the United States and provided support to Colombia's guerrillas. Prosecutors say at the center of the so-called Cartel de los Soles, a network of Venezuelan military officials accused of weaponizing their efforts against America. Now, Rubio was on with Hannity yesterday. He issued one of the strongest statements yet. The Maduro regime is not a legitimate government, he said. What it is a transshipment organization that allows cocaine to travel into the United States. And so we got a letter now, and we'll read this with a skeptical eye. Of course, we've got endorsements in the letter, courtesy of Carrie Lake and Sidney Powell, who say, we have heard and seen a lot of this for a long time. And Carrie Lake, of course, is in Arizona, where a lot of this stuff is allegedly occurring. So the letter comes down. And of course, we're right in the middle of a military operation. Okay, we have a whole bunch of people who want a full-blown strike on Venezuela. And when we read letters like this, we say, oh, is this trying to nudge us towards one direction or another? Support land attacks, support a ground invasion, support strikes on, targets that are inside Venezuela, not just the boats that are leaving Venezuela. Is it trying to nudge us that way? Or is this the truth? Is this an op or is this the truth? So here is what this person says. Dear Mr. President and the people of the United States, that's us. My name is Hugo Barrios. Now, for many years, I was a high-ranking member of the Venezuelan regime. I was a 3-star general trusted by both Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro, and I served as the director of military intelligence and a deputy in the National Assembly. Now, today, I sit in an American prison because I voluntarily pled guilty to crimes charged against me, a narco-terrorism conspiracy, and I write to atone by telling the full truth so that the United States can protect itself from the dangers that I witnessed for so many years. I publicly broke with the Maduro regime in 2017 and fled my country, knowing that I faced criminal charges in the U.S. In doing so, I became their enemy. Knowing the risks, I acted with the strongest conviction to dismantle Maduro's criminal regime and bring freedom to my country. And he may also be, kind of begging for a pardon right now. Today, I see the need to address the American people about the reality of what the Venezuelan regime truly is and why President Trump's policies are not only correct, but absolutely necessary to the United States national security. He writes, I personally witnessed how Hugo Chavez's government became a criminal organization that is now run by Nicolas Maduro and this other guy called Diosdado Cabello and other senior regime officials. The purpose of this organization, now known as the Cartel of the Suns, is to weaponize drugs against the United States. Yeah, that's why we're happy they're getting blown out of the water. The drugs that reached your cities through new routes were not accidents of corruption or just the work of independent traffickers. They were deliberate policies coordinated by the Venezuelan regime against the United States. We know. Now, this plan was suggested by the Cuban regime to Chavez in the mid-2000s and has been successfully executed with the help from FARC, ELN, Cuban operatives, and Hezbollah. The regime has provided weapons, passports, and impunity for these terrorist organizations to operate freely from Venezuela against the United States. And it's resulting in hundreds of thousands, millions over years of people dead. Since 2000, millions dead from drugs. Tren de Agua, they say. Now, I was present at the meetings when decisions were made to organize and weaponize criminal gangs across Venezuela to protect the regime. Among them, the group known as Tren de Agua. Chavez ordered the recruitment of criminal leaders inside and outside prisons to defend the resolution in exchange for impunity. We'll let you out. You got to go attack America. Now, after Chavez died, Maduro expanded this strategy by exporting criminality and chaos abroad to target Venezuelan political exiles and artificially reduce crime statistics in Venezuela. Remember, Trump said they're releasing them out of their prisons. Gang leaders were instructed to send thousands of members out of the country. This was coordinated through the Minister of the Interior, the Ministry of Prisons, the National Guard, and National Police Forces. In fact, Tren de Aragua became the most effective and fastest growing. It's like government-endorsed cartels. And they give them, that veil of legitimacy. They say, oh, you're cartel leaders. Well, yeah, no, we vetted you. Here's a passport. Go to America. When the Biden-Harris open border policy became widely known, they seized the opportunity to send these operatives into the U.S. They now have obedient, armed personnel on American soil, probably tens of thousands. To finance their operations, they were explicitly instructed to continue kidnapping, extorting, and killing. Every crime they commit on your soil is an act ordered by the regime. So, in other words, we've already been invaded. They're already killing us. We're already at war. I was present when Russian intelligence came to Caracas to propose to Hugo Chavez the tapping of submarine internet cables that connect most of South America and the Caribbean islands with the United States for the purpose of penetrating U.S. government comms. So the Russians go over there. They say, hey, let us tap into your little cables over here, but we won't use it against you. We'll use it against the Americans. In 2015, this guy warned Maduro, if you allow Russian intelligence to build and run a secret listening post on our island, that's going to invite American bombs. Don't let the Russians build on this island. There's going to be trouble. He ignored me, and they're there. For 20 years, the Venezuelan regime sent spies into your country, America. Many are still there, some disguised or as members of the Venezuelan opposition. Cuban intelligence showed me their networks inside your naval bases on the East Coast. They bragged about having sent thousands of spies over decades. Some of them are now career politicians. Who are they? Can you please identify those people for us? We would like to know. Who are they? U.S. diplomats and CIA officers were paid to assist Chavez and Maduro in remaining in power. These Americans acted as spies for Cuba and Venezuela, and some are still active to this day. Now, what about our elections? Smartmatic, remember them? They say that they were born as an electoral tool of the Venezuelan regime, but soon derived into a tool to help the regime stay in power forever. I know this because I placed the head of IT of the National Electoral Council in his position, and he reported directly to me. The Smartmatic system can be altered. This is a fact. This technology was later exported abroad, including to the United States. Regime operatives maintain relationships with election officials and voting machine companies inside your country. I do not claim that every election is stolen, but I state with certainty that elections can be rigged with software and has been used to do so. Now, people of the United States, that's us, make no mistake about the threat posed by allowing narco-terrorist organizations to roam freely in the Caribbean and throughout Latin America, doing everything possible to harm the American people, to finance anti-Americanism across the continent, and to facilitate the operations of other terrorist organizations and enemies of the United States within Venezuela and now within your borders. Now, the regime I served is not merely hostile, okay? It is at war with you, using drugs, gang, espionage, even your own democratic processes as weapons. President Trump's policies against Maduro and the criminal regime are not just justified, but they're necessary and they're proportionate to the threat. He may even be underestimating what the regime is prepared to do to hold on to power. Can they activate these folks inside of our country? They have contingency plans for every extreme scenario to ensure they never relinquish control. He writes, now I absolutely do support President Trump's policy towards Venezuela because it is in self-defense and he is acting based on the truth. I remain ready to provide additional details about these matters to the United States government, and that should be something that they fully investigate. That got released December 2nd, 2025. And so, of course, reading this, you can easily say this is appealing to Trump. He wants a pardon. There's a lot of effort from the White House to go into Venezuela in a higher capacity, whatever that turns out to be. And the administration could really use some political cover to do that because a lot of people are not interested in another foreign war. We've already had that our whole lives. We're not interested. So how do you bring people, how do you manufacture consent for another foreign operation? This is pretty convincing. That all being said, if this is true, the United States does need to do something about that, obviously. So what is the appropriate response? And I believe that a lot of this is true. We've seen it. Just look around. We've got more people addicted to drugs. The youthful population of our country is dying from suicide and overdose at high numbers, has been that same plan for years. And we've been invaded. Many of them come with their foreign flags. They talk about how they're entitled to healthcare, to schools, to residence, hotel rooms. And they come in and attack our officers, attack our men and women who are trying to protect the integrity of our country. So a lot of this feels true, rings true. The sourcing of it is incredible, right? The guy's in prison. He was a most wanted person across the planet. He was the number 2, essentially, to these guys, served as the director of military intelligence. And so being dismissive of this, I think, would be a catastrophic mistake. And the administration is obviously not dismissing it. So it sounds like they've got some ideas that this is a real thing that is happening. And I don't doubt it for a minute. And I also think that Venezuela is probably getting support from some of our other major adversaries, like the Chinese, like the Russians. And they're acting as a proxy, right? We're basically at war with many other countries, not officially, but through proxies like Ukraine and, other locations. So Smartmatic. We already saw that Sidney Powell, back during the 2020 rigged elections, was introducing a lot of this material, but we didn't have good sourcing on it at the time. So she's very excited about this. She said, yes, this election fraud, it's all connected to everything wrong here. And we're finally learning more about it. So hopefully they are sitting down with this dude to figure out what he knows. Who are the politicians that are spies that are elected and serving in Congress? We'll find out. But here was what Rand Paul had to say about this. Rand Paul, of course, is on many of these intelligence committees, or was, and is in Congress. He should be very well apprised of these things. Let's see what he has to say about a conflict with Venezuela.
Top Pentagon officials will meet with lawmakers on Capitol Hill. It's all about that second strike on the alleged drug boat that killed 2. Senator Rand Paul joins me now. Mr. Senator, now, apart from the recent boat attacks, are you okay with this huge military buildup? I know you don't like the boat attacks. I got that. But this is a huge military buildup. What do you think to that?
I think the boat attacks are a prelude to an invasion of Venezuela. I don't like the idea of an offensive war. I like the idea of regime change. It's really one of the things I liked about Donald Trump was that he was against the Iraq war. He was against the war in Libya. He was against the war because often regime change leads to chaos and great expenditures both in lives and in treasure. So I hope that's not what's coming, but it certainly looks like it's a possibility.
One way or another, you think Maduro is gone pretty soon?
I think for his people, I hope he's gone, of course. I wrote a book, The Case Against Socialism, and in the opening chapters we talk about starvation, loss of weight, just the gangs roaming, people eating their pets in Venezuela. So I want, the Venezuelan people to have a chance. I just don't think a military option, particularly without permission of Congress, is a good idea.
What's the alternative to a military operation?
Well, the alternative is a messy world where we say, you know what, we don't always, we're not always able to establish perfect government everywhere. I mean, Colombia has a left-leaning socialist as well. South America at any point in time has 3 or 4 socialists running the countries, but it hasn't been our policy to say, oh, well, socialism is terrible and it's ruinous for its people, which is true, but we don't typically go in and just replace people. I mean, think of the despair of those in China, particularly since Tiananmen Square. But we don't advocate really going in and having regime change in China. At least rational people don't. So, yeah, it's an imperfect world, and we continue to strive for better, but we don't think that we have the ability or the obligation to replace governments around the world.
Do you think?
I think it's deeper than that, though. So, it's not just about changing the form of government in Venezuela. If what the former Venezuelan CIA director says is true, then they're subverting our country. They're attacking our country, not openly on the face, but through subversive means. And so I think that is maybe where the administration is going, to say we're under attack by this country. The government is facilitating subversively, secretively, an attack on the country in a way that other countries are not doing, which is why there may be an attack on Venezuela. So we'll keep our eye on this one, but Kari Lake and others, I mean, this is, if what is in here is true, and it probably is partially true, at least, it's a big problem. And the United States needs to figure out what to do with the people who are already here. The president has come in, done a great job locking the border down, changing some of the policies, canceling a bunch of admissions from problematic countries. But many of these people are already here. And what happens if there is a land strike in Venezuela and Maduro activates 10,000 criminal gangbanging Venezuelans who have been deported into our country from their country? So we'll keep our eye on it. Kari Lake, Sidney Powell saying, we told you so. Rand Paul, as usual, a little cautious about the next steps, but we'll see what the president does, and time will tell. All right, now let's go over to Texas. More election news and a big victory out of the Supreme Court. Let's take a look at this one. Huge victory out of the Supreme Court of the United States. Greg Abbott and Texas wins. We know that a lower level judge said your redistricting can't happen. You have to go back to the blue map because the new map is a little bit too racist, said some judge in Texas. Then that would have reverted the pickups back to Democrat seats. California already added a bunch of Democrat seats, so the Republicans would be way underwater. Fortunately, though, the Supreme Court came back down and said that lower level judge from Texas was wrong. Shouldn't have done that. Was racing to change the rules before the deadline expired. Didn't even give the dissenting judge the opportunity to properly present the dissent in the opinion, and released it because they wanted to revert it before the clock expired. And now they've been reversed. Big victory for America. So the Supreme Court came back down. They gave us this order, and it's not a long one. We do have a concurring opinion from Judge Alito, but we have a big fat dissent from the whiny libs, Kagan, Sotomayor, and wait for it, Judge Jackson. So here's the main decision from the majority saying, all right, with an eye on the upcoming 2026 midterm elections, several states have in recent months redrawn their congressional districts in a way that are predicted to favor the dominant political party. It's called politics, and it's allowed. Texas adopted the first new map, then California responded with its own map for the stated purpose of counteracting Texas. Then North Carolina followed suit, and other states are also considering new maps. But then the lower level Texas judge cut the rug out from underneath the Texans. Respondents in this case challenged the new Texas map. They say, this map is racist, predominantly racial. Then a divided 3-judge district court agreed, and they stopped the new map. I think it was Judge Brown. Said it is racist. With the campaign already underway, the state of Texas and several other people said, hey, we're already in the middle of this new election. We've got new districts. We need new candidates to fill those new districts, and you're reversing it? So the Supreme Court says, well, based on our preliminary evaluation of this case, Texas satisfies the criteria for relief. Texas is likely going to win anyways on the merits of his claim that the district court committed at least 2 serious errors. So Texas will win. They're saying Supreme Court, that lower level judge, is an idiot. Here's why. First, the lower level judge failed to honor the presumption of legislative good faith by construing ambiguous, direct, and circumstantial evidence against the legislature. So if you have 2 interpretations, either this is legitimate or this is racist, if it's a good argument for both, you pick the one that benefits the legislature. They acted in good faith. So you say this is legitimate and that one should prevail. According to the law, the judges shouldn't find adversarial reasons to dismiss stuff that could be validly interpreted that comes from the legislature. So they failed. They should have held it in a light most favorable to the government. They didn't. Second, the lower level court, it was really 3 judges, but I think it was Judge Brown who wrote the decision, which was pathetic, failed to draw a dispositive or near dispositive adverse inference against the respondents, even though they did not produce a viable alternative map, right? The argument from the lower court, the government, the Texans, they said our map is bad. Okay, well, we drew it as best we can. So if you have a better idea for a map that is not racist, you need to show us that. You need to present an alternative, because there's only so many ways to divvy up a state, right? So if ours is so racist, what's your alternative? Do you have one? No, they never did. They should have come up with one in order to provide an alternative, and they didn't. That was a mistake. Now, Texas has also made a strong showing of irreparable harm. Okay, the election is already underway, and the equities favor the public interest. This court has repeatedly emphasized that lower federal courts should ordinarily not alter the election rules right on the eve of the election. Now, this court violated that rule here and was racing to do it. It was like speed racer to try to get this decision out because the clock was ticking. The longer you wait, the closer it is to the election, and that creates a relationship where you really shouldn't act the closer you get to the election. Now, the district court improperly inserted itself into an active primary campaign already underway, causing much confusion and upsetting the delicate federal-state balance in elections. So the legislature, which is mostly representative of the people, says this is how we're going to do things. Then some district judge says, no, you're not, reverses it to give the Democrats their 5 blue seats back. The application for a stay presented to Justice Alito and by him referred to the court is granted. The November 18, 2025 order entered by the lower level judge is stayed pending the timely filing of an appeal in this court. Now, should a notice of appeal and jurisdictional statement be timely filed, this order shall remain in effect until we decide. And as it stands right now, Texas map is back. Now, Alito came back down, and he also issued a concurring opinion. He's got Justice Thomas and Justice Gorsuch weighing in and joining his team. He writes, Alito, I join the order issued by the court. Texas needs certainty on which map will govern in 2026, so I will not delay the court's order by writing a detailed response to each of the dissent's arguments. Instead, I offer 2 short points for me, which are decisive. First, the dissent, the libs, they do not dispute, because it is indisputable, that the impetus for the adoption of the Texas map, like the map subsequently adopted in California, was partisan advantage, pure and simple. Okay, it's politics, and you're allowed to be political in America because our system is political. So it's partisan advantage, it's pure and simple. It's not racism. Racism's not allowed, but partisanism is. Second, the clear error standard of review does not apply here because the trial court based its findings upon a mistaken impression of applicable legal principles. The judge was just dead wrong. So when stuff comes up on appeal, there's different standards. You say, do we look at it de novo? Do we look at it fresh, as though like the lower level court did nothing? We're going to review all the facts, review everything, and then make a decision. De novo review, that's the standard. Look at it brand new. Clear error is like, we're not going to look at it brand new. We're just going to look at the lower level court and ask, did they make a clear error? If not, then we don't need to change anything else. Don't need to look at the facts. Don't need to analyze the law. It's just, was there a clear error? Yes or no? No? Okay, great. So the dissent says we should only be using the clear error standard, which would be much more deferential to the lower level decision. Alito says, no, we can't do that. His entire opinion was based on bad law. Because of the correlation between race and partisan preference, litigants can easily use claims of racism to end gerrymandering. They just come in, everything is racist, and everybody's a bigot, so nothing can get done. And the judges are like, yeah, that's true. To prevent this, our precedents place the burden on the challengers. They need to disentangle race and politics. If you say it's racist, you need to show us how. Thus, when the asserted, because everything is racist, as we know, we're, living in America. Thus, when the asserted reason for a map is political, it is critical. The challengers need to produce an alternative map that serves the state's allegedly partisan aim just as well as the map the state adopted. Okay, so you give us a different map that is not racist. If you can, and they can't. Although because every single map that you would propose that disadvantages the Democrats is going to be racist. That's just how it goes. Anything that you do is racist. Although respondents, experts could have easily produced a map if that were possible, it isn't. They did not, giving rise to a strong inference here, says Alito, that the state's map was based on partisanship, not based on race at all. Neither the duration of the hearing at the district court level, nor the length of its majority opinion provides an excuse for failing to apply the correct legal standards as clearly set out in our case law. Yeah, that's coming back on you, Judge Brown. You just got told by the Supreme Court. What is your excuse? You have no excuse. You should be ashamed of yourselves. And he didn't do that. He just raced it through because he was so upset that the Republicans were going to pick up seats that he just tried to rig it and reverse it. But then we get to the dissent. We'll just hit some of the highlights here. The three libs on the court came down and they said, over the course of 3 months, a 3-judge district court asked the very important questions. Are the Republicans racist? Did they accomplish a racist map? Then the lower level court conducted a 9-day hearing involving 24 witnesses. What a waste of time. All of it wasted, all of it reversed. Good effort. It assessed the credibility of each of the witnesses. And we did a lot of work on this. And then the court came down and issued a 160-page opinion recounting in detail its factual findings, which again are based on fraudulent laws. Yet this court reverses that and they did it over a holiday weekend with a cold record. You did this too quickly. We want full briefing, right? She wants to delay it. Let the status quo exist. Reverse the maps to the 2021 maps. Have full briefings on this. In the middle of next year, the election's already underway. Primaries have already happened. Use the old map until we can have a full briefing on this. And then maybe allow it to go into effect. But it's already too late now, right? She wants to kick the can down the road so they can win the midterms. She says, we need clear error. There wasn't clear error. They put a lot of work into this. And so I respectfully dissent. And Kagan is one of the smarter ones of the left. She's, they're like, this is like kind of a hard decision, an important one. Like, she can take it. Sotomayor, Jackson, they didn't want to give her this one. So then the Trump administration switched tacks. They said, we're going to go and we're going to gerrymander everything. And with that letter, Texas' attitude changed. And then Texas suddenly became racist because Trump sent them a letter and said redistrict. 2 days after receiving the letter, then Greg Abbott said, all right, this is it. We're taking out all black people from all the districts and all the Hispanic people too. You're all gone. The plaintiff here challenged the new map. They said, this is racist. What about everyone else who's not white or something? And it's like such a racist thing for them to even say. So all black people vote one way. All Hispanic people vote another way. All white people vote another way. Texas's only defense to the racial gerrymander is that it's not racial, idiots. It's politics. We can draw maps politically, as we always have. Texas has never argued that they were racist. They just said we're doing things that are not racist. So the district court had to come in. They had to say, is this racist? Yes or no? And the court said it was. In support of that conclusion, they said, we've got pretty strong evidence here that this is racist. Why? Trump triggered it. The administration came in and they framed it in racial terms. And the letter was asking how they can rectify. And they use words in there that had some dog whistles for racism. Then second, the district court said, well, the legislature was also racist and they were asking about racial composition and blah, blah, blah. And then third, they also found that legislatures intentionally manipulated Hispanic and black districts because they're also racist. So the court went through a bunch of circumstantial evidence, and the map maker, they didn't bring in any other map makers, but they brought in experts to whine about the other map. Putting all this together, writes Kagan, the district court came up with a conclusion. They said it is racism. The desire for more Republican seats, yeah, that motivated it, but the lines that were drawn were racist. So they can say it's not racist, but it's clearly racist. And so the dissent continues. You can see very upset about it, but they lose. So we don't, they're not in the majority. What does the majority think is wrong? Well, it's not racism. Yeah, it's not racism. There's a legitimate explanation for it. So they lose. Texas gets their maps back. Tremendous news on that. And you can see it's going to be a difficult battle. This is Polymarket's latest on the question, which party will win the House in 2026? And so the Democrats right now are at 78%. I'll tell you, if the Supreme Court didn't have this decision come back down, it's probably closer to 90, 95%, because that would have been 5 seats not swinging in the Republican way. So we've got our work cut out for us, my friends, but big victory from the Supreme Court. And Ken Paxton called in to chat with Steve Bannon, and here is what they said on the phone.
We asked the U.S. Supreme Court, we appealed directly to them very quickly after that ruling within a couple of days, and asked them to put a stay on the lower court's ruling so that we could continue with our primaries as we had planned. And then we got that ruling yesterday. So it was a big win. If we had lost, it would have thrown our plans in for redistricting out, and we wouldn't have a chance at the Republican seats, and it would have thrown our primaries into chaos.
And they wanted to do that because they did not want the Republicans to pick up any seats at all. So the great redistricting war is underway, and here is a report over from News Nation with some clips from Ron DeSantis in Florida about what the latest is all across the nation. Good report. Here it is.
And now the push to redraw congressional maps ahead of next year's midterms. So late Thursday, the Supreme Court overturned a ruling and approved Texas's new map. This was a big win for the Trump administration. So now the attention shifts to congressional seats in other states, including Florida, which could be the GOP's biggest redistricting test. News Nation's Ryan Bass, he joins us outside of a courthouse in St. Petersburg, Florida. So Ryan, let's begin with that ruling from the Supreme Court for Texas to start.
Yeah, you mentioned, Kelly, I mean, this was a massive win for President Trump and Republicans as he had been pushing the Texas legislature to pass this new congressional map. And the Supreme Court approving that comes at a pretty opportune time because Monday is the filing deadline for candidates in the Lone Star State if they want to run for office. Now, Texas in this map, this had been a controversial redraw that they had done here in the Lone Star State. This new map could help Republicans win up to 5 more seats.
That's
a
huge.
lower court had ruled that map likely violated the Constitution and was a racial gerrymander, but the Supreme Court didn't agree, and that decision wipes that out. Here in Florida, this would be the biggest prize that Republicans are certainly coveting ahead of the 2026 midterms, but also it is the hardest state to redraw maps. Our Constitution here in the Sunshine State flat out bans any partisan gerrymandering. So if Florida wants to jump into this fight, it is not going to be quick, and it's certainly not going to be clean either. Here in Florida, we already have a very heavily Republican majority, 28 congressional seats, 20-8 edge for Republicans, but they see a chance to add 3 to 5 more seats. However, GOP leaders aren't unified. I mean, the House is moving ahead now, while the Senate wants to wait until a spring special session backing Governor Ron DeSantis. Democrats say that any mid-decade redraw would be illegal, and they already have voting rights groups that are on standby ready to challenge it. Now, any redistricting effort here in the state of Florida would have to go into effect by April 20th to count this election cycle. Governor Ron DeSantis actually commented on this earlier this week, saying that Florida may be forced to actually have to redraw their own maps because of a pending Supreme Court case in the state of Louisiana. He says a ruling that he believes could directly affect Florida's already drawn lines.
We're going to do it, and part of it is we're going to be forced to do it, I think, because the Supreme Court's VRA decision is going to impact the current map.
Interesting. So they'll use that as a basis to reopen and kind of say that our current rules are invalid, so we have to redraw it. We'll see what the Supreme Court says, but the great redistricting battle continues, and a big victory from Texas. Greg Abbott saying, "We won!" Texas is officially and legally more red. The Supreme Court restored the congressional redistricting maps passed by Texas that had 5 more Republican seats. The new maps better align our representation in D.C. with the values of Texas, and that's how it's supposed to be, and we're happy to see that. So the battle will continue. We'll be here to cover it. Thank you for subscribing and joining as we do. Elections coming up soon. All right, now, one more update on the day, my friends, and then we'll hear from you. And then, members, stick around. We'll have after party time, baby. But we got some Judge Dugan stuff that is also percolating out there. And so let's get into it. Judge Dugan, the backdoor judge, has trial coming up very soon. We have this audio recording that we're fighting over. She does not want it to come into court at all, has filed a motion to preclude it, and the DOJ, the prosecution, have responded. They said, okay, some of that audio recording from inside the courtroom when she let an illegal alien use her back door after ICE was there to try to arrest him, some of that, the government says, we don't really care about. We don't need to have that audio come in. But there is a key bit that we do want in, and they articulate what exactly that is in this filing. In response to Judge Dugan's, the backdoor judge, her response, this is the DOJ's response to her motion to exclude the courtroom audio from the trial starting soon. The United States government, the DOJ, courtesy of Pam Bondi and the prosecutors, they say the United States of America, by our lawyers, respond to Doogie's motion in limine to exclude portions of the courtroom audio when she was not in the courtroom. Okay, so she's the judge, she's in and out, leaves to go distract the ICE agents, comes back into the courtroom. People are blabbering the entire time. It's recording everything. It's all on audio. Now, the United States does not oppose most of Doogie's request. However, the United States requests that the court allow the admission of the slightly more than 3 minutes of audio that captures activity after the court was called into session, but when she had stepped out of the courtroom. Okay, so recordings are happening. She's not in. She comes in, starts the proceedings. Then she leaves, goes, distracts the ICE agents, obstructs them, comes back in. When she's gone, it's about 3 minutes. We definitely want that. The United States agrees with Doogie as to the nearly 30 minutes of the 33-minute audio recording. They don't care about the 30. We don't need that. It does not oppose her request to exclude the 17 minutes that occurred prior to when the court was called into session. You come, all rise. Court comes. Court now. Presiding. She comes out. We want that audio once that starts. The U.S. also agrees that all the audio when she is in the courtroom after the court is called into session is admissible. So anything that she heard or saw, we definitely want that. The only points of disagreement with her between the prosecution and the defense is 2 minutes and 45 seconds of audio that captured activity after Doogie left the courtroom following court being called into session that morning. She's in, she leaves. And 2, the approximate 30 seconds of audio that captured discussions that occurred when she was near and exited briefly through a jury door with EFR, the illegal beater, and his attorney. Okay, so the illegal alien who beat somebody, that's why he was in court. The victims were in court, but she let him use her back jury door. And there's 30 seconds of audio that captures that. Now, we'll learn more about it. Now, evidence is relevant and can come in if it has any tendency to make a fact of consequence more or less probable than without that evidence. So if we need to decide on something, will this fact help us decide that thing? Yes or no? A fact of consequence is not limited to the ultimate issue or elements in the case. Rather, a fact of consequence can be any step along the path of inference that leads to an ultimate fact. Well, it doesn't help us answer this exactly, but it helps us answer this, and this helps us answer that. So it does not matter under Rule 401 that there are multiple evidentiary routes to the ultimate fact other than the one relied on by the proponent of the evidence. Now, to be relevant, evidence need not conclusively decide the ultimate issue. It's not like this will prove her guilt. All it needs to do is to help our proposition that she was obstructing in this proceeding more probable. But it must advance the inquiry in some way, shape, or form. Okay, those are the rules. So does this evidence advance the claim? And of course, relevant evidence may also be excluded under Rule 403. So 401, is this helpful? Is this going to be useful in our prosecution? And if so, yes, great. It's relevant, but is it prejudicial? Rule 403 is the balancing test. If it's more helpful than it is harmful, it comes in. If it's more harmful than it is helpful, it stays out. Rule 403, big rule, talk about it all the time. Relevant evidence may be excluded only if, so it's relevant under 401, but we still want to keep it out, only if its probative value, how it would help us, is substantially outweighed by unfair prejudice, the harm. It's going to be unfair to Doogie. It's going to mislead the jury. They're going to be confused. What does this evidence mean? I don't know. Is it going to cause a delay? No. Is it going to waste time in the trial? No. Is it going to present cumulative evidence? Is it going to be duplicative? So we've already heard that. Don't need to hear it again. They say no. The approximately 2 minutes and 45 seconds of audio that captured events in the courtroom after Doogie left shortly following the court being called into session is relevant in at least a few reasons. For instance, it will demonstrate that the illegal alien and his attorney were not at the counsel table during the time. Okay, it was not the time for their case to be called. They were not at the table. The prosecution was not over there. They weren't calling their case. The illegal alien and their attorneys were maybe behind the bar, maybe sitting in the pews. In fact, another criminal defense attorney called WP, shout out to WP, and his client were instead at the table. Now, based on their conversation with the defendant, Dugan, after she had taken the bench, this defense attorney clearly expected his client's case to be called first. And if you've never been to a court, usually the courts, and I don't practice in Wisconsin, but usually the courts will set a time for everybody. It's like 8:30, 9 o'clock, 1:30 in the afternoon. Everybody shows up. All the criminal attorneys, you're scheduled at 9. Everyone's scheduled at 9. But then the attorneys will go and they'll meet with their clients. They'll meet with the prosecutors and they'll decide what order to call their cases. Or maybe there'll be a list on the like a list of all the cases, like 100 cases. And you come in and you say, okay, my case is 49. Great, 49. So then you just get in line and attorneys will just kind of, defense attorneys specifically will kind of, okay, what do you got? Do you want to change a plea? Oh, that takes forever. I just have a simple continuance. Can I jump in front of you? Yeah, no problem. So you go in front, Your Honor, what case? Number 40, here, Rob Gouveia on behalf of whatever. And Your Honor, we got a recent file delivered from the prosecution. We need a 30-day continuance to review the new disclosure. And boom. Okay, so now you go, case is called, case is closed. Next attorney jumps in. So this attorney was at the bench. He was at the table. It was his turn. He's seated there. Judge comes in and doesn't call his case. The microphone, and usually you're working with the prosecutor. Prosecutor's got their case file ready. Busy courts. These are state cases. So a bunch of people in there. Prosecution's ready. Defense is ready to call the case. Let's go. So the microphone at the counsel table largely captures WP's conversation, not EFR's conversation or that of his attorney. Okay, so the illegal and their attorney not at the table. Both WP and EFR's criminal defense attorney are expected to testify at trial. So the other defense attorney was in the room and the illegal's lawyer are going to be at trial. The audio will corroborate both of their recollections and their expectations at the time my case was going to be called. Now, in addition, WP, the other defense attorney, was aware that his conversation was being recorded, and he told his client, don't speak about the case. Like as we talked, shut up, write it down and pass it over on a notepad. Don't speak until we're outside the courtroom. Relatedly, that portion of the audio provides helpful context for what immediately precedes the highly relevant audio of what Dugan did when she came back into the court. Now, if you listen to the entirety of the audio, it captures the sudden, unexpected change that occurs when Doogie, the judge, re-enters and she tells the defense attorney who's seated at the table ready to call his case to step aside. All right, WP, we're not going to be calling your case. She enters the court It's not your turn. Move. And it's clear by listening to the audio immediately preceding her return to the courtroom that her directive was an unexpected change. Okay, they go, what? We're ready. The case is right here. It also captures other relevant evidence, and they have a footnote. It says the defendant, Dugan, has filed the transcript under seal, but the actual audio, which captures tone of voice, makes the surprise even more clear. Okay, tone of voice. WP, in the transcript, he says, okay, Your Honor. In the transcript, oh, yes, Your Honor. That sounds reasonable. I'll move over. But he goes, Your Honor? Yes, Your Honor? You want me to move? It sounds different. And you go, okay. Prosecution's like, all right. Okay. Of what he was doing, it also captures other relevant evidence. Such as one witness's immediate impression of what Dugan was doing in the hallway. So what the defendant was doing in the hallway was obstructing and distracting the ICE people. So some other random witness said, I think the judge is outside talking to the ICE people for whatever. Like, what's she doing out there? And why the defendant's clerk, Dugan's clerk, took certain actions before Dugan returned. And the clerk, as we know, just continued the case. The audio will play a conversation in which the court clerk told a state public defender that the defendant, Dugan, was calling the chief judge. So some public defender who may have been representing an illegal or some other illegal or some other person says, where's the judge at? Oh, she's calling the chief judge, the clerk said. Now, the state's public defender, who was just in the public hallway, corrected the clerk by sharing his impression of what he just observed. So this other witness, the public defender, he says, well, she's out there confronting them in the audio. The clerk eventually responds, good. Glad they are obstructing. Co-conspirator, arrest them. Which explains why the clerk went into the public hallway to observe for himself. He's like, yeah, Dugan, she's such a hero. I can't wait to go see this. Goes out, and then ultimately why the defendant needed to wave for the clerk to accompany her back into the courtroom through the entrance from the public hallway after she confronted members of the arrest team. Okay, and clerks are usually very, supportive of their judges, unless the judges are maniacs. But they're on the same team, like politically aligned. Oh, she's calling the chief judge. Well, actually, she's not calling them at all. She's out front. She's confronting them. Clerk says, good. Let me go take a look. Clerk walks out just to go get a little taste of her heroism. Now, Dugan does not explain how any of that evidence is unfairly prejudicial. It gives us great context, why that would confuse any issues, why that would be a waste of time, or why that would be needlessly cumulative. Less than 3 minutes of audio is not a significant amount of time. Nothing critical is said about her, and rather than confuse any issues, it actually provides helpful context for the extremely relevant activity that follows it. And while there will be some testimony about what occurs during those less than 3 minutes in the courtroom, playing the audio is not needlessly cumulative. Like, yeah, we're going to have these people come in and talk about it, but we want them to hear it in real time, like what happened. The United States, because of its heavy burden, is entitled to cumulative evidence in that little way. Now, similarly, the additional 30 seconds of audio that captures activity in the courtroom immediately after scheduling EFR's matter off record is also relevant. So as I explained, you go to the table, you call your case. Everything's open in public on the record. If you want to submit something, not in that public forum, then you would submit it as a motion just straight to the court, and you wouldn't address it all in public. But they're there for that reason. And EFR, the illegal alien who's now been deported, bye-bye, he was charged with beating people, victims. It wasn't like just, got caught with possession of drugs. People call it victimless crime. Okay. He was beating people. The victims were in the courtroom. They knew that he had a scheduled court proceeding. That's why they showed up. Okay. So that they could make their position heard and even just show up in court to be seen. They have rights too. So what she did is continued it off the record. At the other attorney, she said, go over here. We're not doing your case yet. For instance, it captures the state prosecutor talking with another defense attorney, which demonstrates a relevant point. It demonstrates that Dugan did nothing to even ensure the prosecutor was notified. or even made aware of what happened in the illegal aliens case, which is just sick as a judge. She's got victims in the courtroom who got beat by this dude. She just continues it, postpones it another 30 days, and she allowed him to appear telephonically at future proceedings so that he could not be deported. The fact, moreover, that fact will provide a relevant contrast for the jury when they hear the remaining portion of the audio that captures how Dugan addressed other cases in her courtroom that morning. For instance, the audio will demonstrate that Dugan, less than 10 minutes later, told a defense attorney to make sure the prosecutor, who was not participating in the discussion, was aware of dates scheduled off the record so she could make any necessary notifications to any alleged victims. The victims were in the courtroom. You could have notified them right there. The defendant did not do that when EFR's matter was being scheduled off the record, right? So other victims were in the courtroom and the judge dealt with them differently. This contrast will be relevant. It will tend to show that the way that Dugan handled EFR's matter was hardly routine at all, an issue which the court already ruled is relevant and may be explored at trial. She said, I do this all the time. Well, you didn't do it all the time that day. In fact, other victims that were there, you talk to prosecutors about dates and making sure that they're apprised of everything. Here, you continue the case without apprising the prosecutor or the victims of anything. We can explore that at trial. In fact, in a prior ruling, the government was told they can introduce evidence about whether the judge handled the case in a customary fashion. She didn't. The audio shows that. Now, also, the court will give the government, quote, some leeway at trial to demonstrate that they were handled here in an unusual fashion, which it was. Now, this 30-second portion also captures the conversation between Dugan's clerk and the court reporter. They're both talking about ICE, and the clerk shared with the court reporter the derogatory term he claimed to have said to one of the federal agents in the public hallway. Okay, so the court clerk goes out and starts, lobbing profanities at these ICE agents. Their conversation about ICE tends to show that they, at least, had the immediate impression that the judge's unusual way of handling this case was related to the ICE presence in the hallway. So the court clerk and the court reporter, it's like, are all talking garbage about ICE. Do you think that their bias maybe manifests itself in their work product? They should all be fired, honestly. They don't respect the enforcement of the law. They're working in courts. Their values are misaligned. None of the concerns listed in Rule 403 outweigh this portion of the audio's value. It's probative. It's not harmful, let alone substantially harmful. During this 30-second portion, nothing is said critical of Dugan. There is nothing cumulative about it, and it confuses no issues at all. So the United States, though, does agree with Dugan that the court should exclude the 17 minutes preceding the initial entrance into the courtroom. Everything the audio captured after court was called into session, though, is relevant, and none of its probative value, even when Dugan is briefly away out of the court, is substantially outweighed by unfair prejudice. It's not a waste of time. It's not a confusion of the issues. It's not cumulative. So the United States requests that you grant some of it, because we don't need all of it, but deny the rest of it. We want this evidence coming into court, sent in this 4th day of December, 2025. So Judge Dugan and her trial will be coming up soon, and they're already going into jury selection. Of course, I think this will be a fun one to follow if you're interested in it, of course. But we see final order coming out from the judge saying at the final pretrial, the parties were instructed to confer and provide a list of prospective jurors from the supplemental batch of 50 that should be struck or excused for cause. They're already selecting. The parties have provided under seal a list of 10 jurors they agree should be excused based on what we know already, as well as a list of 10 others over which they disagree. Consistent with my previous ruling, I will strike the 10 agreed upon jurors and take no action on the others until voir dire is conducted. As also discussed at the final, any remaining prospective jurors from the batch will be on call for Friday, December 12th, 2025. Trial starting very soon, coming in next week. So we'll be here to cover this one, my friends, but it sounds like, they're making a very good argument as to why that audio should come in. I don't think it is problematic or prejudicial in any of the ways that Doogie says it is. but no decision yet. We'll keep our eye on this one and hope that you join us as we do. All right, my friends. What a beautiful stream it has been today. If you're just joining us, quick recap on what we talked about. We went through some of the presidential schedule this morning, and Trump is over talking World Cup stuff right now. We saw Melania's doing some reading. The Andrew Wolf family was in the Oval Office. Prayers up for our National Guardsman who was shot by a lunatic. And Trump is out there talking about Christmas. All of that, a little bit of a roundup at the start. Then we talked about the alleged pipe bomber. We have a new photograph of this dude, and a lot of it matches what the speculation is alleging. Short legs, in the area, in Virginia. But we still have a lot of questions about it. We went through the latest, did a little compare and contrast on the new photos. We read through a big thread on some prior history, and there's some interesting connections here. I mean, the guy may have been a brony, which I'm pretty sure was the precursor to the full-blown furries. It started with the bronies and the ponies, and now they're like dogs and cats and like just expanded. So apparently, and this is weird because Tyler Robinson was also a furry. We also had Thomas Matthew Crooks, who had basically no social media history that we know of at all until Tucker Carlson came back down and said he was all over YouTube. So lots of questions about it, but we went through, we saw his background, Delta names. He's on Adult Friend Finder, super big video game accounts all over the place. So some interesting details on that, all open source courtesy of Travis Hawley. Great thread. We also saw that Ben Crump, the BLM civil rights lawyer, represented his dad. His dad ran or runs a bail bonds company. This was the company he was trying to sell, and it has now been sold, but Ben Crump was all over the place on it. The Blaze retracted their article. Shout out to our friend Viva on all of the tubes. Mark Warner is a moron. He said, it would have been nice if the FBI would have found this person sooner, forgetting that the FBI was run by the Biden administration for the last 4 years. But he's not that bright. He's Mark Warner. Kash Patel was out saying more will be revealed on this. We got Jake Tapper, who was explaining that this guy was a white man, even though he's not a white man. And Dan Bongino says this is chapter 1 of a lot more to come. So we covered all of that. Then we turned our attention to some Kari Lake news and this letter that came out from this guy who is an ex-spy from Venezuela called Hugo Carvajal Barrios, seen here in federal prison right now, saying that the Venezuela regime is attacking America in multiple ways and saying Trump needs to address it immediately. So we'll keep our eye on that. We read through the letter. Very interesting stuff in there. I think a lot of it feels true and is easy to believe. Just look around our society and just see what's happening. It's pretty obvious. So Rand Paul, always skeptical about foreign conflicts, and we heard from him. Then we went over to the Supreme Court. Big victory out of Texas. Supreme Court coming back down, 6-3 decision. The libs very upset about this, saying we should just brief this a lot more. And the lower level judge did a great job, even though he relied on bad law and tried to rig an election in the final days in the middle of a primary. But big news, big victory. Happy to have those 5 seats coming back. We've got reports from Ken Paxton and others that this will continue around the country. Florida is now looking at it, and we do need some progress because these numbers are not looking good over on Poly Market. So hopefully those will be changing soon. And of course, we're going to be doing our best to make sure that happens. But we then wrapped it up with a little Doogie trial updates. And Dugan is now fighting hard to keep this audio out of the trial because it is probably going to be damning for them. And the DOJ submitted a response saying we want this audio to come in. Not all of it, but at least about 3 minutes of it. And it should just do the trick. So trial will be starting soon on this one. And if you're interested, we'll of course be covering it. See what happens with the backdoor judge. But now, my friends, it's time to hear from you. Happy Friday. Hopefully your week was just amazing. You accomplished all the things you set your mind to, and you're gearing up for an amazing weekend ahead. Membos, stick around. We got some new membos coming in today. Man, what a nice thing. What a nice thing. And membos, stick around. We're going to have an after party. We'll debrief. We'll see what else you have to say on the show today. We got a bunch of membos. What a nice, how generous. Thank you, everybody. Look at this. Oops, did I do that? Is that him? Steve Urkel. I remember that show. It's a pretty funny show. Anthony Finzia, what's up? 5 membos gifted. Thank you for that, Anthony. What a nice thing to do. HR Remy coming in. Stephanie Kinsey, welcome. Super Goober Gaming, what's up, Goober? Kakali is here, and Dagonilly. Gifted membos, courtesy of Anthony. Thank you, Anthony. Welcome, 5 new membo friends. Stick around for the after party. We'll see you in just a bit. Voice of the People says, it's going to be another science night on Off-Label Podcast. Seems a plane's electronics were corrupted mid-flight from a supernova a long time ago. Well, that sounds interesting. It's not that plane that disappeared, is it? Voice of the People. Off-Label Podcast right next door on YouTube and on the Rumbles. Have a great stream, Voice. Going to be a lovely Friday, it sounds like. Hey, George Garbanzo says, autism can affect any part of the body. Some of it affects the throat, affecting a permanent puree diet. Some the arm, causing a permanent claw hand. This could account for the walk and the swaying. That's interesting. I don't think I've ever heard it phrased that way. So does that also lead to some mental like debilitations? Because if you just had like a claw hand, but your brain was fine, I don't think people would say you're autistic. They would just say you have a disability in your hand, or you have, like a neurological disorder in your motor functions. But would they say that's autism? Anyway, so then that would mean that you would think that he was actually the bomber, because if he is and he's not autistic, is what they said. He's like almost autistic. Like, I don't know if there's a formal diagnosis of that in any way, but then you would say that it's not a woman who's like just kind of swinging her hips around. It's a dude who just has a weird gait because of autism. From George Garbanzo. Thank you, George. We appreciate the details. Hey, Sharpie guy. When Tapper tells you something, you can't believe your lying eyes. Sheesh, Rob. Do the left really believe everyone is stupid? Yeah, I do. I actually think that a big portion of all of our politicians think that we're all stupid. I think that they think that many of us are just like cattle. And as long, like literally, like they're just idiots. They're just peasants. They don't even know what's good for them. So you have to guide them this way because they're just like cattle. So I really do think that there's a feeling about that amongst the elites. You know, you think about like when you see a crowd of rioters or something, like if you watch, overhead video, you've seen these videos, like overhead videos of people, like let's say ransacking a food truck. Right? It looks like chaos. It just looks like ants and bugs, just kind of chaos. I think they think of us in that way. They think of us like, we got to do these things because all of these little people who are just like, savages and vultures out there who are not as sophisticated as the oligarchical elite. You have to take your jab. You have to allow your country to be invaded. You have to stop climate change, like all this stuff. They're just mechanisms of control. And they think that we are stupid. And that if they just scare us into compliance, threaten us into compliance, use labels like science and, kind of propagandize us into compliance, we'll bend. And many people do. Many people do. So what does that say? Rubos, maybe Jake Tapper heard that Brian Cole identifies as white, so he was careful not to misrace him. Misrace him, LOL from the Rubos. Jake really wanted him to be white. He felt like he was white. He was like John Brennan. He should be white, right? Shouldn't he? He's not. Yeah, but he kind of feels like he is white, And that's probably where that went. OSPAC. Hey, in case you missed it, apparently a grand jury refused to issue a new indictment against Big Tish. We did. We saw that at the end of the show yesterday from OSPAC. Yeah. And Abby Lowell was out running his mouth last night. They're celebrating. Man, they're all celebrating. And they may try to indict her again, but a third time. And then every time that they indict her, they're just going to say, look how vindictive this is, especially if a grand jury doesn't return an indictment the second time. It's going to be rough, man, if we don't get any justice for these people. Voice of the People says, don't believe the pipe bomb story unless he built them, not planted them. Still, to say he bought all of it years ago for that moment is insane. Any construction worker would be guilty by that standard. Yeah, and we were gaming that out yesterday, Voice of the People. I used to do swimming pool construction, literally. And so I had, tools. I used to drive a truck, and I had even the toolbox in the back of the truck. I had tons of stuff. I had wires. I had steel wool. I had tons of pipes, tons of end caps, all sorts of everything. and drove around all the time with it. And I would, not need a lot of it most of the time, but you go in, you accumulate this stuff. Like, I think I need this for this job, and I don't. I used half of this stuff, so I'm just going to keep the other half of the stuff for the next job. So you end up with just accumulating just gobs of stuff. And so his buying pattern kind of matched that. Now, I haven't seen anything that he did any construction at all, or that was involved in hobbies that might necessitate those things. And when I did a lot of swimming pool constructions, like a lot. So I don't think I ever bought alligator clips, right? The alligator clips are already on things like your electrical tester. So I don't know why you need the alligator clips. Like, that's more for like some hobby, maybe electronic building. And I just never needed that in the field. And again, even for like galvanized piping and stuff, like, why do you need the clips for the galvanized pipes to move liquids or gas through, not to explode? So stuff like that feels weird. But I also agree, man. It's just like a lot of people probably bought in this country. I bet there's many more people that bought that same recipe list. Okay, probably thousands of people across the country that have 1-inch pipe nipples, that have end caps, that have alligator clips on them, that have wire, right? Probably thousands of people would have that combination of stuff in their truck. So then and they even admitted that in the criminal complaint, they said, right, there's like 233,000 of these that were just, okay. So is it such a unique combo that it drops that number down to 10 to 20 to 50? There's reasonable doubt there. So that's why they had to add in the cell phone stuff, and they matched it. We read it yesterday. They matched the video surveillance with cell phone pings, but the cell phone pings, they told us that data was corrupted, so we couldn't see it for whatever reason. Now we can see it. So like, a lot of that doesn't add up, but it still is very early, and he's going to have a court appearance today. He'll probably be indicted, I would imagine. That will replace the criminal complaint ultimately. So there will be more evidence in there, but there's questions about it. And if he's going to be a lone wolf, like he just went out and randomly dropped pipe bombs off, hopefully there's more. And I want to be satisfied. I want to be satisfied with these cases. I want to go down and lay my head down on my little pillow and just go, oh, we got him. This is so nice. Beautiful. What a great FBI we have. Love America. I want to. And hopefully we get there. Hey, Mock Schnell. 20 new membos coming in, courtesy of Mock Schnell. Thank you, Mock Schnell. New membos. We'll see you in just a minute. Joe Booty. What's up, Joe? Rebecca Galen. We got Ron Little. What's up? K Bean in the house clipping for us today. Aries Acres is here. The Phallus Howard. What's up? Big Papa Sims. What's up, Big Papa? We got Head to the Shed. Delta's here. Clara. What's up, Vida. We got Mariette. We have Matthew Claiborne. Mock Schnell saying Merry Christmas. Thank you, Mock Schnell. Kung Fu's here. Ed of Mist. Tay is in the house. Bobby the Great, welcome. Becky Bridges. WJ4K73, welcome. Renal Dolazo, 1996 in the house. And Michelle also joining us. Very nice to have you in the house. Hey, Quadcam is here. Yeah, it says, according to both ChatGPT and Claude, both good AI systems, if a foreign leader is intentionally sending deadly drugs into the U.S. as a weapon to harm Americans or undermine U.S. national security, and if small, fast vessels carrying those substances are already en route on the high seas, posing an immediate and potentially evasive danger, the president can legally claim authority to use limited defensive military force to interdict those boats. Sustained ops require congressional authorization. That's from the War Powers Resolution. Yeah, I think that makes total sense. The president has broad military powers. The only time that they complain about it is when Trump is using those broad powers. Any other president can do it. There's not a peep out of them. When Obama drone strikes 4 American citizens without any due process of law, they don't care. So that sounds legally defendable from my perspective. And the way I analogize it is they're almost like kamikaze pilots. What if a kamikaze pilot was flying an airplane into a building in the United States? Would we shoot that down? You're damn right we would. Some foreign country? What if some foreign country sends a missile into the U.S.? I don't think we have a missile defense system that does anything. But if we did, and we were like the Israelis and we could shoot them out of the sky, then we would do that because it's a threat to the nation. These are just people on a boat. It's not much different. And they're coming in with drugs, and our military is making the analysis and the assessment. It's happening in international waters. And I don't want dead people, man. I don't like the idea. Like if I were the president, like I got another one, I got to take out another one. I would contemplate that. There's people out, yeah, blow him out of the water, kill him. Like, I don't know who those people are on that boat. I've got empathy and humanity for them. I don't know if they're drug mules, if they're threatened, if their families are being held hostage, whatever, and they're on the boat coming. I don't want to kill anybody or anything, honestly. But I also don't want American citizens being killed or dying to the tune of 100,000 a year from fentanyl. And so you have to weigh it out. And I definitely don't want Americans to die way more than I don't want some people on a drug boat somewhere to die. So if you have to make that decision, you have to make that decision. And it seems like a pretty damn easy one, honestly. But I would still have, I think, that sucks. Are we sure? Are we sure? 100%? Okay. But you have to protect the integrity of your country. And the idea is it's a strong disincentive. Once the rest of the amigos down there realize you get on one of these boats, you're going to get blown to smithereens. You hopefully don't get on the boats anymore. It disincentivizes that behavior unless, they're being like threatened into it, in which case maybe they're kind of victims. But eventually a nation needs to protect itself. I do not want to invite these people into our country. Like if you make it onto the shores, then you got it. You got here, get your drugs out. And then we have to charge them and prosecute them. And then we have judges like Judge Zenas who say, well, he's being tortured down there, whatever. We don't want the drugs in our country. The people who are sending it in here should be treated like enemies who are attacking our country and stopped. It seems pretty simple to me, even though, it's taking of a human life, which I think should always carry a gravity to it. Even if the person's a terrible person, I don't want them to die. I wish they were not a terrible person, so we did not have to kill them. But they are a terrible person, so we do have to kill them, which sucks. But they got to go. Nacho Mama, 15 months as a membo. Thank you, Nacho Mama. Great to have you coming up on 2 full babies in the house. Says, hey, good morning, watchers. Hope your day is amazing. It has been amazing, Nacho Mama. We got some good updates on the day. And actually, we're probably going to stick with this because apparently we're going to get a court update. So hang tight. And it looks like any minute now, they're saying the pipe bomb suspect is due in court. So let me swap this out. Let's see what Fox has for us. Let's go over to the cables. Because if he's about to be in court, we'll see what we got on this. Bringing up the cables over here. See what Fox is reporting for us right now. Turn this audio on.
It's interesting, Sandra. Yesterday, we were talking with Paul Morrow and others about what it was that led them to Cole, and we suggested that, well, maybe they took another look at the cell phone data because there was some initial reports that the data that they got from the cell phone companies had been corrupted, but then apparently those reports were shut down. So maybe it was just as simple as what cell phones were in the area at that time, then they nailed it down from there.
They made it very clear, as you just heard Pam Bondi say, there was no new evidence. They just went back and did good old-fashioned police work, and that video, that grainy video, was a big part of it. And you have to assume they were able to use technology. We were discussing yesterday, right, John, some sort of AI maneuver that was able to help them more clearly look at that video. But nonetheless, any moment now, we will see that suspect who is due in court there in Washington, John.
We want to see.
Looking forward to that. We've also got John Yoo coming up in our next hour on this to talk more about the case and where it goes from here.
All right. Meanwhile, President Trump is heading to Pennsylvania next.
All right. So, yeah, we'd like to see if there's any transportation of this inmate that we can see walk in. But we'll keep our eye on that one. All right, so I've got that queued up, and we'll jump back in there once he comes back in. But Murphy's Law says, I gotta say, I still see this as possibly being a CIA op, but I could still be convinced it is this dude. Yeah, I can easily see it being this dude. And if he is autistic, I could easily see him being a patsy too, and just, creating or backfilling of a convenient scapegoat for it. So I I want to see a lot more evidence. I mean, I feel like what we have seen thus far is probably just this tip of the iceberg, and that there will be more. So I'm looking for more confirmation rather than I am, I would say, objecting or doubting the claim. She's like, okay, this is new. This is good. We're happy to see it. So thank you for that, Murphy's Law. Yeah. Hey, what's up, Rhonda? Good morning, Rhonda. This old guy says, and Just Rhonda just sent these in. Stephanie, new membo in the house. Welcome. Courtesy of Just Rhonda. The Yummy brand is here. Shadow Night Crew. What's up, Grifty? Jeffrey Phillips. Kev McDougal. Owesia on COD. Kopak. What's up, Zitty Champ? We got Robert Lane, all gifted membos, courtesy of Just Rhonda. Great to have you new friends in the house. We will be seeing you in the after party coming up soon. This old guy says, wow, the Dugan audio recordings are actually big. Her goose may well be done. Yeah, those are huge. Huge recordings. And her staff hates ICE as much as she does. They were going out there to like cheerlead her. She's out front. The clerk's like, yeah, Dugan's fighting back. He goes out there. Yeah, Dugan, get him. Well, they should be indicted as co-conspirators. Just Rhonda, thank you for bringing in those membos. And Ken Krause, thank you. What's going on? We got Ruffin Sanderson, James Corella, Aaron is here, Harry Hutcherson, welcome. P. Birkins in the house. We got Griffey, Leslie, Kevin Murphy, JL, Rippin' Lipsoff in the house. Man, Rippin' Lipsoff in the house. With your romantic making out. What's going on? The voice of the people should be heard from Voice of the People. Said, and nothing about his history or family history points to this being a possibility for him to plant him. Well, I mean, his family history apparently is pretty criminal. And he doesn't have any criminal history. So is he just starting like his first crime off with a pipe bomb at the Capitol building? It's pretty impressive. We're just going to go big. Yeah, my parents and like my brothers and my aunts and everybody speeding, DUIs, drug crimes. I'm going to go blow up the RNC and the DNC. From Voice of the People. Yeah, that's one possibility. All right, so let me see if there's any other updates on this court appearance, because we definitely want to see that. See if we have any live coverage over on the YouTubes. Or let's see if C-SPAN has anything for us. Cables aren't covering it anymore right now. So as you can see, let me share this one with you. What the heck, Rob? All right, right here. Here's what the cables got for us. And I'm trying to find maybe a different feed, a direct feed, a live stream from right outside the building. But they're talking about the economic tour. We've got live Christmas music on YouTube. We're live. Man, I'm not seeing it. So not that many news organizations, I guess, are interested. Here we got CNN's got a report.
And sources say that during these conversations, Cole told agents he believed the 2020 election was stolen. Cameras are not allowed in federal court, though we will provide updates as we get them. We have reporters there in the courtroom. And still to come, RFK Jr.'s handpicked vaccine advisory panel voting to abandon universal hepatitis B vaccinations for newborns. What this means for parents, including those who want to vaccinate their kids. Plus, the military official who oversaw a controversial second strike against an alleged drug boat in September is giving his account of the events. And it does differ from other defense officials' accounts. We'll have some new details about yesterday's classified.
Okay, so that's going on over there. Technofog, you know who he is. He gave us a deep dive on this attorney. I tried to find him briefly, couldn't find out who it was. But he got him. DC pipe bomber Brian Cole now has an attorney. It's John M. Shorman. He doesn't practice criminal law. Expect his partner, Mario Williams, to file an appearance. Little criminal experience. Great publicity for their firm. Not the lawyers you want leading the case if you're Cole. Yikes. Okay. So John Shorman, here's his background. Mario Williams is his partner. Litigating, so private attorneys, not public. His areas of expertise: employment discrimination, whistleblower retaliation, police misconduct, due process violations. Yeah, not a lot of criminal defense experience, it looks like, but Mario Williams is the partner, and John Shorman, which I couldn't find much about, will be there. What's the connection? Shorman and Williams represented the father's bail bond company when they sued Homeland. Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. So the same lawyers, they're claiming their client was pardoned along with everyone else on J6. That's hilarious. That's a good defense, actually. Even Trump pardoned him. Yeah, there's nothing wrong there at all. What's up? Deborah Myers says, hey, I'm not sure what is going on around here where I live in New York. All banks around me and the internet, very odd, went down, never saw anything like this. Very odd, started to wonder if cyber, that's scary. Deborah Myers, that is scary. Is that local? Is that just like localized to your house, or is it the whole, neighborhood? Because that does not sound good. Not sound good at all. But we're glad you're here on the internet with us here today. So at least that's working. That's good news. All right, well, we're trying to see if this guy is going to be arraigned any minute now. Still looking for some feeds. Let's go back to the cables while I dig into this, see if we can find something. And if not, we'll just jump over to after party time. But here's Fox. See what they've got for us.
How Democrats are pushing sympathy for smugglers and why that hasn't always been the case. With analysis from Derek Maltz coming up.
So many
this
commercials.
Isn't the Skipper and Gilligan on the SS Minnow that we're going after here. These are hardened drug traffickers.
All right. So more commercials over from Vox. They're all just on commercials constantly. That's why we hate the cables. All right, so we're trying to see if there's a live feed outside the courts, and we're not seeing anything at the moment. So we may just leave it there and call it a day. Let me check a couple other spots here. See if they're outside. Otherwise, it's MSNBC. We don't want to listen to that. We've got
so that's
AP.
Confusing. So both of you get a hat.
The AP still doing this watch party thing for some sports. Whatever's going on over there. Bay Area FIFA World Cup watch party. We'd like to have a watch party of the Pipebomber, but apparently we don't. All right, so my friends, we'll leave it there on the day. We'll have some updates after his first court appearance. Members, stick around. We'll see if he comes and joins us as we're debriefing. We got some locals comments to attend to. See what else you guys have to say about all this stuff. And we'll get to it. All right, so members, stick around. Come join us for the after party, and we'll see what you have to say about all this and more. But we'll pause here for the week. It has been a beautiful, beautiful week, my friends. Thanks for hanging with us, going through all this news. We'll be back on Monday to get into it again. Members, of course, we're going to have our members-only stream tomorrow on Saturday. Always a fun time. Come join us if you'd like to. Join up on YouTube, join up on Locals, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. Otherwise, we'll see you back here on Monday. But, my friends, before we wrap it up and leave it here on the day, we want to thank our amazing mods and meme smiths who mod the fort down for us and keep things oh so nice and orderly and beautiful around here. Big shout outs and thank you to K-Bean and to Carrie B, to Muffin Rando, to Donut Mind Me, our friend John. We got Neuro D, Janek, Dog Digger, Geegum Geegum, Just Rhonda, and Elliot, all modding the fort down for us, keeping things nice and beautiful and orderly around here. But we're going to pause. It's after party time. Members, stick around. YouTube friends, you should be automatically transported over to come join us, and we'll see you then. But otherwise, my friends, I hope that you have yourselves a beautiful rest of your Friday, and you're doing something fun this weekend, getting outside, getting some fresh air, spending time with friends, family, all the people that we love, and enjoying yourself, recuperating, rejuvenating, rehabilitating our body, our spirits, our mind, our souls, so that when we come back on here on Monday, we are roaring and ready to go. We can't wait to get back here to do it again with you. Until we're back here on Monday, my friends, I hope you're out there getting after it, making it a great and beautiful day, such that you return here on Monday to get into it again, because in order to do that appropriately, we are going to need to see you right back here, so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night and a beautiful weekend, my friends. We'll see you right back here on Monday. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. You brought the heat with every chat and line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are watching the watchers. Truth on our side. Watching the watchers. We won't be denied. Watching the watchers. Eyes open wide. Fighting for freedom with nothing to hide. Drop a like and don't forget to share. And bring a friend who's ready to care.